Okay, day 5. We're into this. We're moving, making momentum, and we're going forward. Now, the big question is what happens when and if we relapse? If you make a mistake, if you slip up, if you go back to old habits, old behaviors, just because we make the commitment right now and yesterday and the day before that to do better doesn't mean that we're going to be perfect just yet. We're not going to be there. And if we relapse, because it's not an inevitable thing, you don't have to. We don't have to go back. But if you do, what is the best thing to do? What was the best way to kind of to take that slip or that mess up and move ourselves forward, falling forward? Um, Now, what we're going to talk about today is this idea of what comes from a psychologist named Maurice Harker. It's called a lost battle analysis. Now, he views this as a battle with the addiction, with kind of the enemy, which for him, for all of us, is this. There's the spiritual side of this of Satan and his followers, but there's also those internal natural desires that sometimes get twisted and taught and then trained to kind of do things in the wrong way. But we are battling for something better and fighting for that. And so, this idea of a lost battle analysis is to past, look back over that relapse or that mistake or that slip up and break it down. At what point did things start to kind of go awry? At what point did things start to slip up? And at what point can we intervene and change things up so that we don't go back and do it again the next time? Now, if you haven't relapsed in the last few days, fantastic. Keep going. You can still use this technique to review and reflect over past relapses, past times that you've messed up. And as you're journaling, this can be part of that integrated process to kind of reflect on those things and know how, hey, you know what, today, tomorrow, this day, I'm going to be doing better in this because it's been a pitfall in the past. So, how do we do this? There's a 5-step process. We're not so much steps, but levels. So we're going to look at the relapse, look back on it just long enough, not to beat ourselves up, not to kind of hit ourselves, but to reflect on and learn from. So we're going to kind of go from the moment that we gave up, right? Level 5 is at what point did we just give in and start a full-on relapse? We started looking at pornography, we started masturbating, we started doing whatever. We stopped fighting it and we just gave in, right? And so looking at what point did that happen factually? What day, what time, when was that moment that we just, I'm in, right? So we'll go from level 5 at that point and start backtracking. Level 4, what is that irrational? What is this conversation in our heads that we're starting to justify going back and forth, or we have those voices in our head kind of pushing us and leading us down to this point where we're going to give up? As we look at it, we can see how irrational it was. This back and forth of like, well, it's kind of okay. Well, if it won't be as long, you know what, this isn't that bad. And that irrational conversation kind of, it gets confused until the point, and then we're saying, you know what, screw it, I'm just gonna do it, right? F it, I'm in it. And we do that. So looking through that conversation and starting to recognize some of the patterns of those justifications, some of those words, some of the kind of the thoughts that kind of really start to lead us into there, which takes us to level 3. And for Maurice Harker, level 3 is that dude moment. It's that first invitation, that first real push into, hey, dude, let's go look at something. Dude, you haven't checked this website in a while. Dude, things might have changed. Things might be different. Dude, do you remember that girl, what she looked like? Do you think she's got any pictures or videos out there yet? That moment, that first initial thought process that really is that, hey, go, like, hey, let's go look at something. That first invitation, the temptation, the first real concrete thought that is kind of, hey, moving in that direction towards a relapse. So recognizing when that comes, what that sounds like, where that comes from, and learning to kind of recognize that. So 5 is the give up moment. 4 is that irrational conversation. 3 is the dude moment. Hey, dude, let's go. Let's look. It's been a minute. Level 2 is when we need to kind of really backtrack of what are the emotions going through us before that dude moment came. What was that predisposed situation or setting or kind of physiological state that we were in that really led us to kind of be more prone to that way of thinking? Most of the time, if that dude moment comes, and we're perfectly fine, stable, feeling connected with people, feeling well, or level headed and clear minded, the dude moment's gonna be like, no, I'm not gonna do that. That's dumb. I'm fine. But a lot of times, this temptation or this invitation comes in a moment when we are emotionally or physiologically compromised. We're tired, we're angry, we're stressed out, we're really excited. Whenever we're kind of the emotions are just kind of high, and we're kind of feeling that maybe a little bit punch drunk in the sense of we're not quite thinking logically, rationally, clearly. It's more that emotional sense that's kind of driving us to this place where we're predisposed or vulnerable. But when that dude moment comes, when that first initial punch comes, we'll stop to consider it. We'll stop to think, you know what? That might have something. But then, no, 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 no. And then the irrational conversation, the back and forth. We sound like a crazy person up in our heads. Then it comes the moment we just give up, right? Now, this process can kind of happen pretty quickly, or it can be kind of a slow progression. So after level 2, which is kind of the emotional state, that predisposition, that physiological state, we go back to what was kind of the initial kind of trigger, flash, the initial thing that kind of threw us off emotionally, that started us down this path. Kind of remembering back, when was the last time we were level-headed, we were clear, we were completely in recovery mode, we were completely living our dreams and not thinking anything or moving anything, feeling anything towards the addiction. And so backtracking to that point and recognizing that slow pattern, the hope is that as we become more and more familiar with that kind of pattern, we'll start to see it before we lose control, before we go down that path of irrational conversations, justifications, kind of excuses, before we give up. And so when we are level-headed and clear, it is much easier to shift our attention, to shift our behaviors, to train ourselves out of that state of kind of acknowledging or accepting a relapse and being able to do something better, do something different. Now, I want you to kind of break those steps down and start to look back at the last few relapses you've had. Again, take the judgment out, take the shame, take the kind of any guilt, and just look at what happened, accepting this was the process. This is what went down. These were my thoughts. This is what was going through my head. Backtracking to that point of, okay, I was level headed here. It shifted here into some sort of emotional state that then became bigger and kind of pushed me down a path into where I started to be open to that dude moment, those invitations. And then that conversation, what did that conversation look like to the point, and how long did that usually take until I just give in? Like I said, this can be a quick process within a few minutes or seconds for some people, or it could be something of over a period of hours, maybe days of spiraling down this path into a relapse. Learning to recognize your own specific pattern and taking action against it, taking action towards the person you want to be, will help you develop spiritually, physically, emotionally, a way of overcoming any bad habit or addiction. You've got this. You've got this. So take time, journal about this, reflect over these steps, and think about those things. And we'll start again tomorrow.